What has taken me so long to review Sling by Clairo? Thank you for auditing Professor Sky's record review, the always positive new music review show hosted by a French professor who doesn't have a particularly good answer to that question. I mean, I listened to it, I liked it, I was moved by it. My daughter, whose taste I take very seriously and whose input I really value, has been telling me, "Dad, you gotta review Clairo, it's really good, it's really good." Yet somehow, like almost a month has passed since the album came out and I haven't reviewed it. It has so many things that you'd think I like to review. Meaningful lyrics, cohesive themes, a sort of unified song structure, and production by Jack Antonoff, my favorite and least favorite person in the world. The person whose production I think is absolutely amazing, but I'm so jealous of his ability to make so much great music that part of me hates him while at the same time I love him. So what was it that kept me from reviewing this? I just didn't have an angle. And that's sort of a way, that is my angle, is why did I not have an angle in the first place? The album is very intimate, very, very intimate. But it might be too intimate. I might feel too much like I'm inside of someone's head, right? Like I'm just sort of going through what they're going through. And the first couple times that I listened to it, it was on a car speaker or on my phone speaker, I couldn't really make out the lyrics. I could get this cool 70s soundscape, I could get this nice instrumentation and even some catchy parts, but in general, I didn't really, it felt like I was reading someone's journal and it was written in a language that I don't speak. Like I was reading a journal in Italian or something, and I could sort of pick it up. So it was only when I started putting my headphones on and listening to it more carefully that I was able to be wrapped in. And then even further, when I took the lyrics and read them while listening, I was able to really see what the themes of this album are, why it's so important, and why it's such a good album. I will say that Jack Antonoff, that frustrating, wonderful man, he's doing something pretty interesting here with this year, where he's doing Lord and Lana Del Rey and St. Vincent and now Clairo. He's really showing off this ability to be, I believe I said it in my St. Vincent video, or my Lord video, a sort of anti-Pygmalion. Like he isn't creating these women and then giving them to the world. He's just facilitating. He's just somebody who knows how to work with somebody. If anything, he's like Rick Rubin or something, someone who's just very talented at finding what people do well and encouraging it. And that's how his albums are able to have such an amazing variation in their sound, because he's not really directing the show. He's just organizing it and helping it come together. It really is quite impressive. And on this album, I think we're seeing a real continuation of, it might be his influence, I don't know, but pop music getting more and more organic, moving further and further away from bleeps and bloops and 80s throwbacks and going to 70s throwbacks, 60s throwbacks. Certainly, I think if you listen to what we've heard from the new Lord album, certainly from Daddy's Home, we're really getting this sense that he and the people he works with are helping to push pop music to be more made by human beings playing instruments and less by human beings playing computers. Have I ever sounded older? What you doing there playing computers? In general, the soundscape of this album, I would say it varies pretty interestingly. It's very Elliott Smith-ish, or at least very inspired by people who were inspired by Elliott Smith. By that, I just mainly mean very confessional songs with doubled, tripled, quadrupled voices where you feel like you're inside of someone's ear. And also reminds me quite a bit of Harry Nilsson at times. The way that Harry Nilsson's albums were produced, particularly his sort of early 70s albums, there's kind of like a looseness and a sort of 70s, slightly groovy, often piano-based feel to it. Again, what is taking me so long to review something which I describe as being a cross between Elliott Smith and Harry Nilsson? Thematically, I am absolutely in love with this album. I don't know how old Clairo is. You can tell me in the comments if you want. I get the sense that she must be in her early 20s or mid-20s. I read somewhere that, this is my first time listening to her, by the way. So I discovered in researching this that she has a song called Alewife, which I grew up in suburban Massachusetts, and I love Alewife Station. That was what got me into the city. I once convinced my ex-girlfriend that it was pronounced Aloe-Fe. Very embarrassing that I didn't correct her. It's a black mark on me. So all I really know about her is that she's pretty young and she's from the Boston area like me. But this album really feels to be somebody searching, and this is one of my favorite themes, as an old man who has, teenage kids and is very much settled in his life. Part of listening to music is listening to people at different stages of life. And this is a person very much confronting her relationship with domesticity. What does it mean to want to have a house, to want to have good relationships, to want to have a dog, potentially to want to have babies? Like, what do these things mean? And I think because it's coming in her early 20s, none of this feels like society's trying to tell me to do this, my biological clock. It feels like it's an honest search, not a prescribed search, not like, and this is the album where she says this. It feels like she's maybe 3 albums too early to be making this point. But it's great. Altogether, it works really nicely. It seems as though every song is either about coming to terms with domesticity or getting out of bad relationships. For my stamp, if you don't know, on this channel, I take one song and that's my stamp. That's my homework that I give you to listen as an example of her music. I'm actually going to pick the last song on the album, which is probably my favorite. I'll put a link to it up there. It's called Management. This just shows Antonoff's, I'm not going to say wizardry. I am. I'm going to say wizardry. See, I don't have a script. I have notes. And sometimes a stupid thing comes into my head, and I didn't write it down, but I have to say it anyways. Antonoff's wizardry is really on display here. What he's able to do all the way throughout is figure out ways to put gentle on gentle. So he's using layers, lots and lots of layers, lots and lots of instruments all the way throughout this album. But it's like gentle sound, and then he really cranks it up a notch with a different gentle sound, and then with another gentle sound. It never breaks out of this gauzy, nice 70s feel, despite the fact he keeps adding elements. He's like a good chef who can just throw more and more spices in without ever having any of them take over. It's not some kind of cumin nightmare, right? It all just blends together, and like a good meal, you have to spend a little bit of time with the food in your mouth going, I do taste the cumin. I taste it. I see it. So like this song starts off with a piano and like this delicate guitar, and then voice upon voice upon voice. Very much a kind of Harry Nilsson upbeat piano bit to start off here. And then it slows down before the chorus. And then as the chorus goes, it gets faster and faster. And Antonoff and Clairo just keep adding more and more textures. It stops and then restarts. This happens a couple times on the album. And I'm just going to read you some of the lyrics that show her sort of style and where she is lyrically on this album. I'm doing it for my future self, the one who needs more attention. I'll forget to forgive and hold it all in. I'm old with some resentment. So this is a funny thing, about the difficulty of aging. She's sort of imagining what aging is going to be like and doing this for herself. And it's a funny idea, and it's a good idea, and it's definitely, I'm going to sound pretentious here, but it's kind of the folly of youth, thinking that you know how you're going to feel when you're older. I thought I knew how I would feel when I was in my 40s, but I was completely wrong. But still, it's this idea of like thinking about how she'll be when she doesn't get all the attention that she's getting now. I think she's very sort of uncomfortable with the kind of attention that she gets. That's a theme throughout the album. But in that future time, she'll think about this and have some resentment. Interesting themes, very smart themes, and I think very necessary because, with music this intimate, it can't just be bad breakup after bad breakup, right? Or it can be, but that'd be fairly limited. She's making this sort of larger point, which I think will help more people, especially more young women who are coming to terms with these questions of what is it to age, what is it to long for domesticity, what, like what are all these things and what do they mean? She's giving voice, which, let's be honest, most music has been dominated throughout time by young men expressing their angst and their feelings. It's nice having this sort of different set of questions being asked. Kind of nice woozy and cool after that sound, and then it picks up again and there's like strings everywhere. I'm telling you, I'm just going to keep it with the wizardry thing. Antonoff's subtle wizardry. I pronounce that like I'm from Boston. He's a total wizard. Kid's a total wizard kid. All right, so I'm going to go through the rest of the album a little bit quicker. Opens up with a very charming track, Bambi. The opening lyrics, I'm stepping inside a universe designed against my own beliefs. She sings it so unassumingly that you don't realize how preposterous these lyrics could sound with someone else's voice. Like, could you imagine it like Rush or like Zeppelin or something? I'm stepping inside a universe designed against my own beliefs. But the way she sings it, it goes quite nicely. They're toying with me and tapping their feet. The work's laid out, cut out to the seam. Delicate double voice, great bass work. Again, kind of in this Nilsson style, great muted drums. Jack Antonoff, I don't know if you're totally responsible for this, you know, like the cool gospel stuff that St. Vincent was doing there is great, but reintroducing the muted 70s drum sound is so welcome. Phil Collins and that weird gated snare and all the kind of like ringing stuff is fine, but like nice 70s, like you feel like they opened up the bottom of the drum head and put an entire like 2 pillows inside them, and then when the drummer hits it, it's ta-doom, ta-doom. All right, dog hair everywhere. Jesus. You know, like just totally muting down the drums. It's a great, great sound, especially with the nice muted bass and this great growing 70s aesthetic, which Antonoff is at least facilitating, if not creating. A cool flute and saxophone solo. Again, it's gentle on gentle. Some 70s organ comes in, a Wurlitzer electric piano. All these things come in, but then at the same time, it's pretty standard pop structure. The point where the bridge is supposed to come in, the bridge comes in. So despite it's going off in these whole different kind of realms and it feels very artisanal and all that, it's still very much following the pop structure, verse, chorus, bridge, whatever. Amoeba is the closest thing to a head nodder for this album. In general, this album is not really designed to make you dance. It's sort of designed to make you sort of like look out of a, like I like to say, look out of a window of a train, watching the landscape go by and thinking about your life. You know, this one it kind of gets you going. A very great instrumental break with nice clavichord in there. The vocals are all kind of washed out all the way through. It's very upbeat for this album. Partridge is just these great 60s sounds. Remember I was talking about those drums and I played with the pillows that are covered in my dog's hair? Seriously, you couldn't see on the camera, but I am like covered in my dog's hair now. The sounds of the drums remind me very much of like the Abbey Road sounds from the Beatles. You know, like that kind of muted drum sound, which is just great. I'm just so happy to have it back. This is a song apparently about a bad relationship. Comfortable, unmotivated always, seeking other stories, other memories. I'm sorry I have to hold you longer than you expected. It's only temporary. Interesting sort of emotional depiction of a relationship that lasted too long for the person who you're breaking up with. Great outro here with these. Ooh, this is why I had to listen to the album a couple times, right? Because, you know, I only review things if I have the time, if I like it, and if I have something to say. I knew I had the time, and I knew I liked it, but it's hard to say what to say beyond like, this is just great. This outro, listen carefully. Listen to Partridge, okay? Listen to the outro and hear what's going on. This, damn it, wizardry of Jack Antonoff, the subtle wizardry of his production. I really hope this video, you know, I always want my videos to do well, but I don't want this video. Don't like this video, don't subscribe, don't share this with anybody, because I don't want to be the guy who called Antonoff a wizard, unironically. Actually do subscribe and all that stuff. I'm just joking. Zinnias is the next song, which is great. It's a flower. My daughter is writing music. She's learning how to write music now. And she decided to write most of her songs about plants, and they all have plant names. So I'm like, hey, you're just like Clairo. A little bit louder voice here, which is nice, like guitars a little bit in the background, kind of funky drums. And this is, I think, really about struggling with domesticity. Quietly, I'm tempted. Sure sounds nice to settle down for a while. Let the real estate show itself to me. I could wake up with a baby in a sling. And that's where I think the song, where the title comes from, the idea of having a baby in a sling. And the cover of the album, if you haven't seen it, is her with her dog basically in a sling. And there is definitely a thing where dogs prepare you for babies, and couples often have dogs when they're preparing to have a baby. And this idea of just this domesticity that is just felt from having a dog, and these thoughts and these reveries of like, should I or should I not have a kid? This song builds really nicely. Some cool stuff is happening with the guitar here, with like kind of like the guitars are like the notes are peeling off. Very kind of surprising when this happens. A sort of surprising, almost not mellow moment of the album. Blouse, again, kind of a very loud voice. Remind me a little bit of Simon and Garfunkel, which for some reason my computer auto-corrected to Simon and Zagarfunkel. Why does it say Zigarfundle? They never would have made it with a name that silly. Great lyrics here. Why would I tell you how I feel when you're too busy looking down my blouse? Again, about what kind of attention do women get? What kind of attention do they need? What kind of attention do they deserve? Well, it doesn't really matter because most often women just get attention by men ignoring them and staring down their blouse. And again, I'm happy this exists. I'm happy the song is out here. It's something I wouldn't say out loud. If touch could make you hear, then touch me now. Like, she's trying to reach people and be taken seriously, but you can't possibly have a good relationship of equals with somebody. You know, you can't be on an equal footing if they are using you for sexual gratification. I almost said gratification. Sexual gratification while talking to you, right? And listen, I'm not a woman, okay? But based on talking to women, it can be really hard having a female body and having to interact with men a lot. And there are some songs about it, but songs objectifying women's bodies, there's this many. Songs about the difficulty of having a woman's body that's objectified, there's like that many. You know, if we could just kind of like change that, maybe society would be a better place. Jesus, am I talking about society now? First I say wizards, then I say society. Okay. Speaking of dogs, there's Snoopy. Wade, basically every album there's one song I end up skipping. I kind of skip this. I like it, piano led, good song, moving on. Harbor, the voice again is very loud. It seems to be about this bad relationship. I'll let you in, I'll let you tie the ribbon to my hair just so we could come back to this if we really cared. Great, like these drums come in and set up this line of don't love you that way. And this is a good example of some songwriting that I like, where the songwriter can take an expression that's a fairly common expression, right? Like don't love you that way, and turn it on its head or use it multiple times or use it in different contexts to make you question that saying and what that means. And you know, what does it mean to not love somebody that way? That's the question that she's asking, that she wasn't loved that way and she didn't love that way, and so because of that she has to love herself. It's kind of a weird thing, actually. If we look at this album together as these two themes, they don't go together, right? Like a bunch of bad breakups means you're alone. Yearning for domesticity usually means finding a nice man, finding a nice woman, finding whatever, you know, like coupling with somebody and sort of making a home, especially if there's going to be children involved. So there's a sort of a split in this album. Just for Today, very Elliott Smith sounding, like the double voices right in your ears. It's about, I guess, calling a suicide line. Mom, I called the hotline again today. I guess it's about the sadness and the isolation of the pandemic. That's good. You know, I'm glad there's songs about suicide awareness and all that. It feels a little bit less pertinent to me because I'm not in that space right now, but it's good that it exists. Joni is just a great song. It's really nice because it's an instrumental song. And it's just Antonoff going off with all sorts of different just organs and like guitars and these drums. It's instrumental. It's a nice break from all these voices and these words. It's necessary. And it seems like they're just having fun. That leads into Reaper, which is one of the most clever songs because it's implying that the desire to have a baby, that is a reaper. Like the Grim Reaper, like knocking on your door saying that you're dead. It's like knocking on your door saying you need to have a baby, which is an interesting, a little bit dark vision, which I actually like quite a bit. Little changes, nice kind of horns, multiple voices here. Again, just this ability to keep mixing things in together, mixing all these different sounds. He loves me good enough to calm me down, but tried to trick me into little changes. And this is a very interesting idea. Like, should you change for your partner? There's no right answer. I was waiting like I was going to give you the answer. The answer is sometimes. Sometimes you should. But you should never be tricked into little changes. And then the album ends with Management, which I've already discussed. So that's my review. A very enjoyable album, which I suggest. I don't think you should listen to this album one time. I think you should listen to this album 3 times. And then once you listen to it 3 times, you'll love the album and want to listen to it a lot. You know, you'll have that kind of deep connection that she's trying to shoot for. I do have a Patreon. Please like and subscribe and smash the like bucket. I like all those things. I love getting subscriptions. I check too many times a day. It makes me happy. I love reading comments. Tell me what I don't know about Clairo. I love that. Correct me on stuff. Call out my prejudices. I love all of it. Okay, I really do. But I do have a Patreon, /Professor Sky, and I take the money that I get from Patreon and I use that to buy music. I only use that money to buy music. The only name that's not on here is Milos Spasojevich, who donates at the highest thing, and so I just say his name every time, as opposed to like printing it out. Because like, you know, you go to the high tier, you get your name set, you know. So anyways, thank you to all these wonderful people here for helping me buy more music. It's awesome. I've been buying a lot of music this year because of these people's help. And then that way artists get to keep making music, and we just get to keep going on and just having this great time listening to more good music. There is more good music than I have time to review, which is pretty awesome. Okay, well then until next time, which I guess will be Thunderground Thursday, there's the camera. Oh, if you have any suggestions for Thunderground Thursday, I'll look into them. There's the camera.